Fabulous.
All right, Melissa. All right, here we go. Sharing life's journeys is what we do here on the Where's Willie podcast, powered by Heartland RV. So here's a journey for all of you to consider. Today, my guest is Melissa Paris. Who's Melissa Paris? Get ready. Back in 2009, she was the first female to qualify for a World Supersport race. And then she went on to be the only female to test a MotoGP M1 prototype race bike in history. In 2012, raced the British BSB series at Brands Hatch. 2013, top 10 finish in the Daytona 200, America's premier motorcycle race. 2014, fifth overall in the Spanish CEV Superstock Championship. First female team in history to complete any Suzuka endurance race. In 2015, was first place in the 24-hour of Barcelona, the WERA West Superbike champion, and Moto America Supersport top finish 8th place. In 2016, member of first all-girl team to qualify and compete in the Bold d'Or 24-hour. And sorry if I slaughtered that. In 2017, founded the MP13 racing team to promote young talent and member of first all-girl team to qualify and complete the Le Mans 24 hours. And if that's not enough, and I'll keep things really simple, she's a daughter, wife, and mother, and she just loves traveling on her life's journey at 190 miles an hour. Melissa Paris, welcome to the Where's Willie podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm blushing with all of that.
So, obviously you've caught our attention big time because, in my mind, you're one of the most famous female athletes in history in the world of motorsports. But what I have found is you, your husband, you guys are amazing human beings. So, before we kind of get into just all the achievements and everything that you have done, I just want all the listeners to kind of talk, to learn about, hey, who is Melissa Paris before you were big time and famous? Where did you grow up? And when did you realize, hey, mom, dad, I just want a helmet and I want to be able to lean over 12 inches above the asphalt and go 190 mile an hour?
No, I had a pretty average childhood. I grew up in Northern California with my parents and my 4 older brothers. Played baseball most of my life, normal stick and ball sports, swim team, all this, normal stuff. Went camping with my family, did a little bit of BMX racing. I think the only thing that maybe was a little bit different was just I had a lot of brothers. So naturally, I never felt limited by being a girl because I just wanted to keep up with what they were doing. And I think probably my parents didn't have any time to treat me as delicately because there was just way too much chaos going on. So I just had to keep up. So I'm really, really grateful for that. When I went away to college at San Diego State, I actually met a guy who had a sport bike, and it was something I think I'd always seen him from afar and thought man, I want to do that. That's really cool. But I didn't know anyone who rode a motorcycle. It just wasn't really anything my family did. We were a very middle class family, so motorsports maybe weren't something that they could afford to get 5 kids into. So yeah, I started dating this guy in college. He taught me how to ride, and being down here in San Diego, the canyon riding is epic, world class. So had the opportunity to act like a hooligan and treat the streets like my own racetrack, and got really lucky that some great guys took me to the racetrack before I made myself a statistic. And as soon as I turned a wheel on a racetrack, I think everything else kind of took a backseat. My college education and career aspirations and everything sort of went out the window, and that was just all I really wanted to do anymore.
So, as you're going then through this evolution, you start going, this is cool. I'm doing what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do on my life's journey. But then at what point did it come from or go from recreational to, holy shit, you're pretty good and people are taking notice? What was that kind of process like?
I can't really say for that. I think the big turning point for me personally was I did finish school. That was a deal I had with my parents. I got offered a really great job in accounting. And at this point in my life, I was spending most of my weekends at the racetrack. I was beg, borrow, steal, whatever it took to be able to be there at the racetrack, sleeping in the back of my pickup truck, the whole 9 yards. And got this fantastic accounting job, as fantastic as an accounting job could be, straight out of school, and would have been making pretty good money. And I went to my first day of work, and keeping in mind, obviously, I'd worked my whole way through college, so I could afford racing. But I called my dad that night, and I was in tears. And he was like, what's wrong? Like, your life is just starting. And I was like, I hate this. Like, I do not want to sit in an office for the rest of my life. Like, this sucks. And he was like, what do you want to do? And I think that was the first time I really like verbalized to my dad, who's probably one of the most important people in my life. I just said, I just want to race motorcycles. It's all I want to do. And it was so awesome because, his response could have been, get your shit together. But it was instead, I never told you to go to college to get a job you hate. Like, that wasn't the point of this. And I don't have any money to help you go racing, but what I can offer to you is you can move home while you figure out how you're going to do this. And that was huge, like having his support. I don't think many people get that reaction from their parents. So that was so cool. And it was just kind of like a lot of great stuff happened all at once. I just met who would become my husband not long before that, and he's a professional racer. And so I was really lucky that he was able to kind of give me the cliff notes on the right steps to make along the way. And, it all sort of I just started taking the steps. I saw someone who told me, like, this is the kind of racing you need to do. And like, these are the things you need to do. And the milestones you need to check off to get to where you want to be. And I just started plugging away at them until I got there. And then in 2009, I got my pro license and graded up for my first professional race at Daytona.
Wow. And obviously, when you talk about checking all the boxes, you have surpassed what I think most expectations of a good career have been, and you're still active. So I guess, and one of the things I always go back to, and I don't try to be, cliche, but we all have a life's journey. And are there, like, out of all the achievements that I mentioned, in the interview intro, what stands out to you as like the most, and I don't want to say validation, but the one that you're most proud of?
It's hard to say because, like, when I look at all the cool stuff I've gotten to do, I think I still have like a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Most of these people that I've raced against started riding motorcycles when they were 3 years old, or they were bred to be in motorsports. And I feel like I sort of snuck in, like, I'm not supposed to be here. So every time I've gotten to do something, I'm like, someone's gonna come like grab me and tell me, like, show me back out the door, like, you're not supposed to be here. So I felt really blessed to have all of these opportunities. But as far as like my proudest achievements on a motorcycle, honestly, they haven't even necessarily been the ones that I would put on my resume. Like, some of my best days have been, there's one day in particular riding supermoto with my husband at a go-kart track, and he's a 7-time national champion, and for whatever reason that day I got the better of him, and there was not really anyone there to see it. It was just us, like, in having fun that afternoon, and I got the better of him, and that that was probably one of my proudest things. And I think that's like what is different. Like, I never got into racing because I wanted to say, like, I'm the first girl to do this, or I got to, like, I won this, or I did that. Like, I just really am passionate about riding motorcycles. I love it. There's nothing in this world that makes me so happy. So whether that means riding a mini bike in my backyard or gritting up for a world championship 24-hour endurance race, like, I'm just stoked to be on two wheels wherever I am.
All right, so 2 questions. One, am I allowed to pick on your husband and bring this up every time I talk to him, that you smoked his ass on the track?
You can, but I will tell you right now that he will deny it to the end of the days. It's like the big joke the day that happened. Actually, like, one of my best friends was there, so there was like one witness, and I remember we were like walking through Walmart later that day, and every time Josh would turn his back, I was like, yes, and I was like, yes, and then Josh would turn around and would be all like straight faces, like, see here, yeah. So But hey, man, it happened. I know it happened.
That's right. And along this journey too, it's remarkable, but I think sometimes people get lost or forget that you're human. So, aside from continued success and obviously the success of your husbands, you guys decided to have a family and
Yeah.
you became a mom. So, what has that experience been like for you along your journey as well?
I mean, I think anyone with kids can tell you it's wild. It's the craziest thing you'll ever do. Like, I've been there at 3 o'clock in the morning in Spain racing, in the middle of the night in dark. It's 100 degrees out. You're sitting in a baby pool trying to cool off. Like, that has nothing on like anything that comes out of a 3-year-old's mouth on any given day. So yeah, it's been wild. Hawk is awesome. He's my best little buddy. I love him to pieces. I want to shake him sometimes. But like Josh and I kind of said, like actually the day he was born, I had him in my arms. He was all disgusting and weird looking like they are at first. And I said to him, "We're going to have a lot of fun, little buddy, but just so you know, your dad and I already have a good thing going, and you're gonna have to fit into our life." Not the other way around.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been it. Like the little dude's been along for the ride, So and he's been a good sport about it so far.
That's awesome. So, we talk about all the time too, that on this journey of life, we got sunshine, we got rain, sometimes we even have a storm or two. The one thing that I'm really interested to ask you, from your viewpoint is being somebody that's traveled not just throughout North America, but around the world. Like I said, you've been covered in all the press, you've done all the things. You got hit with something that we all did, and it's a little thing called the pandemic. So last year, as you look down at Hawk and you look in your husband's eyes and you look at your career and you look at the MP13 racing team, like what's going through your mind when all this stuff hit?
Well, it's wild. We were actually at Daytona. My husband had just qualified on pole on my team's Yamaha R6 for the Daytona 200, which has just been a little bit of a white whale for our family, trying to get that Rolex that they give you for winning the race. And it was all about to come true. And our president held a press conference and declared a state of emergency and shut the country down. And they stopped the race. And, we packed all of our toys and our race team back into our RV. And we began the most, I don't know, like eerie drive back across country from Daytona, Florida, back to Southern California. And, at that point, there was like a lot of questions, like obviously just as far as like the health of the world, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what was going to happen with racing. So it was like pretty scary. It was like, is eerie. Eerie's the only thing I could like describe it, So we kind of did this cannonball run to get back to Southern California, and for a couple months, like hunkered down as a family here. And then slowly people started trying to figure out like what was going to happen. And Moto America, the organization we race with, they were working really hard to get racing back on track. So they decided to hold our first race in Wisconsin, but it was going to be no spectators. And then a month later, we'd have a second race there that would have spectators. So Josh and I were like scrambling with what to do, because we've always brought our little one with us along with a nanny to all the races. That's just been our way of life. We don't have family that live nearby us. So we were trying to figure out, like, what do we do? Like, this is a real sticky situation. So in the end, we packed our whole world up into our travel trailer. So I think we had like 4 or 5 dirt bikes, mountain bikes, bicycles, a month worth of clothes, our kid, our dog, everything. And we dragged the trailer to my dad's house in Idaho and basically left the kid and all of our toys with my dad so we could go to work for the weekend, in Wisconsin. And then came back, and between races, we ended up turning like this pandemic nightmare into like the most epic family trip you could possibly imagine. We camped all over Idaho and Utah. We did incredible like off-road riding, which my husband and I have both always wanted to do, but never had the time because we're always too busy racing. So we got to stay and camp in all these like really beautiful places and go trail riding and go mountain biking and take our kid to do all this stuff. And it was actually ended up being like a really special time for us, like it was pretty cool. And I'm really full, honestly, that we had that chance, because I don't think we would have if it hadn't for COVID. So, slowly after that, our race series managed to like figure out a way. Some tracks we went to, we had no spectators, and others we did. And, just like piece at a time, they kind of got racing back on track for us. And obviously we're really grateful for that, because that's how we, that's our life. So yeah, so slowly things got going, but in those early months, it was really cool being able to just take time as a family and go camping,
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you too, and I appreciate you sharing that, because for me, I think this pandemic, for the entire RV industry, has really opened people's eyes. We're so used to having, right? You have that home in that neighborhood, you pull in the driveway, you shut the garage door, you don't talk to your neighbors, but you have. And this, pandemic has really forced people to go, is this the best way to live? Kids can't go to school. Why not travel with them in a travel trailer, and we can go and see the world? My question is, because of this pandemic that forced this situation, and you guys, because you're both athletes, you always say, well, control what I can control and make it a positive, which you did, by traveling and going to see all these cool spots. My question is, when the pandemic does have some, return back to normalcy, whether it's the vaccine or whatever else, do you see, because of the experience that you got to have with Hawk and Josh, would you see yourself going out in an RV again in the future, if possible, and living kind of a nomadic life rather than, hotel stay?
Well, it's funny you say that, because, for the last 10 years, we've lived in RVs at racetracks. It's always been a choice for us. I think if you talk to motorsports competitors, you do have half of them who probably stay in hotels when they go places, and then the other half that stay in RVs at the racetrack. And for Josh and I, like, we've always been more comfortable staying in an RV of some sort, because, man, you just want to sleep in your own bed. You know what I mean? And it's funny because we've always treated having an RV more as a necessity, a tool for doing our job, than it is a luxury like it is for most people. So I think the pandemic gave us a chance to see that, like, it's not just a work tool, and again, like a lot of times with racing, we have been in just like a rush after a race weekend. Sometimes you just want to get home to your house. But I think like we spent like over a month on the road this time, and actually, instead of just like, being plugged in at a racetrack, like got to go unplug in the forest.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to be doing a lot more of that. You know what I mean? It kind of forced our hand to try something we weren't familiar with, and for sure there's going to be more of that. And it's wild, because I keep thinking of like when Hawk gets to school age and is supposed to be like sitting in a classroom all day. Like, I'm not sure how that's going to work. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm going to be ready for my little buddy to like not be adventuring with me. So we may have to find a workaround.
Yeah. Well, and I'm confident that you will. It's funny too that, I guess it's just like, even for me too, it's funny how experiences along your journey, really start, I guess, either changing the values or, your thoughts. Maybe it's us getting older as well. Like, I'm getting close to 40, which I can't even believe. So I guess like, and there's a lot of, athletes that I know about. I mean, as I told you guys offline, me playing college football at D1, I have a lot of teammates that went to the NFL. They've retired and been comfortable. The thing that really excites me for both, not only you, but also Josh, you guys could easily just hang up the jacket, be on call for only big promo races, come out because of the resume you have. But the thing that I really admire for both of you is you're going beyond your achievement and you're looking to build out a legacy. So I want to talk about MP13 Racing. How does creating this team and owning this and impacting others' lives, like, obviously I know it means everything to you, But what all has gone into that, and why does it matter so much to you both right now?
Well, for me, I think I always, no racer ever wants to stop racing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you love something, you love it. And I think for me, that was like my big thing as in the last couple of years, as things have started to shift and change. And honestly, I wasn't like cutting it. I'd gotten to the point, like racing super sport, where I had to hit a plateau. I wasn't necessarily getting any better. I was getting more into doing a lot of the world endurance stuff, which is just a couple races a year. And, I wanted to figure out like what's the best place for me in this sport that I love so much. And I'm still competitive. I still want to win races. And I learned a lot of stuff along the way as a privateer racing. And, I'd see the way teams are doing things and think, oh, I like the way they're doing that, or I could do it better than them. And, that's kind of where I am. So in 2017, when I started MP13 racing, well, no one knew at the time that I was pregnant, but I knew. So that was kind of the start of it. And I really, like at that point, I wanted to pay it forward a little bit because I'd had a lot of help. Honestly, as a girl in the sport, there's not a lot of girls doing it. So I kind of scouted out a young lady that was racing motocross and brought her over to road racing. And that was kind of like got my feet wet with it, and really realized I had a passion for the whole thing, not just managing a team, but actually like as a crew chief and a mechanic, like really enjoyed myself and felt like I had something to add to the sport. And so that's kind of like how it grew. And over the last couple of years, like I've learned a lot and really enjoying it. This last year, unfortunately, wasn't able to run my own team, but went to work for another team as a lead technician, and my rider won a championship. So that was huge. It was really a new experience for me to be able to like be on the other side of the wrench, but still winning races and ultimately a championship, and found that is very fulfilling for me. So that's kind of like that's where I'm headed. That's the route I'm on, and that's my next journey,
Yeah. So if we talk about then the future for now going into 2021, can you talk about so everybody listening and the viewers, when they're going to see this, if they want to be a part of MP13 racing as of right now, and I know everything's a big tentative, there's an asterisk, it's gray ahead, but what are you feel comfortable saying, or at least talking about for 2021 MP13 racing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's like racing silly season right now, so nothing's set in stone, but I'm working really hard to build a super sport program for a really great kid I got to know over the last couple years. I think he's someone that can contend for wins in a championship, and I have, confidence in myself that I can provide him the equipment and the tech know-how to like make that happen. So that's kind of right now we're all hands on deck, like building a program. This is the part of racing I hate the most, right? Building budgets and approaching sponsors, trying to find, obviously it's a pretty big financial endeavor to try and win a super sport championship. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is just trying to like get all the pieces into place so that we can build a winning motorcycle and put it underneath a winning rider,
Yeah. Well, and I know, like I said, you're humble. You even said offline, like you didn't want to get into it, but I do. So, for all the listeners and all the viewers, my background's always been, advanced automation and robotics. Now I'm obviously with a manufacturer with Heartland RV, which is under the product family group of Thor Industries, which is #1 in the world. Being the fact that the Where's Willie podcast is produced and managed by Jacket Media Co. There's a lot of companies and people that may want to have some involvement. And I don't look at this as like checking the box or being sexist or the guilt trip. You are one of the most successful, famous female racers in history in terms of what you've done on two wheels. And there should be no shame for anybody that wants to align themselves and be a part of sponsoring your team because of that. So like I said, you can go ahead and stay humble. I'm not going to. I think it's incredible what you've achieved, especially what Josh has achieved as well, what Hawk is going to achieve. I mean, maybe Hawk will be one of your racers, right?
Could happen. You never know.
So I do want to talk a little bit then about business. Just, not about like cost, dollars, what the sponsorship levels are. But if somebody wants to become a sponsor, what is the best way for them to get started? Do you go to a website? Do they reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, they're reaching out to me on social media or via email, melissa.paris@gmail.com. I think like sponsorship has really changed in motorsports in the last, probably 10 years. There was a time where it was just slap a logo on a racer's suit or on the motorcycle and call it a day. Oh, hey, I put your link on my website. But that you know what I mean? Like that's come and gone, and it's really cool. Like we're really able to offer like a lot more cool stuff for sponsors than I think we were in the past. One thing I love about Moto America is we have an open paddock. So if you go to like a Formula One race, you're gonna buy a ticket and probably have a seat you can sit in. And if you spend like $1 billion more, maybe you can get a suite and have a slightly better view. But when you come to a Moto America race, you can walk right through the paddock. So you can see all the race teams at work. You can get really close to the athletes. You can get close to the motorcycles. It's really cool. And then we're able to take that one step further. So with some of our sponsors, we'll do things where we'll get them VIP passes. So maybe that means they get to walk out on the grid before the start of a race, or hang out in our hospitality, our race team's hospitality, and get to know our racer and our mechanics and kind of like enjoy a behind the scenes tour of like how our race team works. And those can be really cool things for companies because they can either use it as incentives for their employees or, as a perk for some of their best customers. There's like a lot of really cool stuff you can do around that, and I just think it's fun to be more creative and be able to deliver cool experiences like that instead of just plugging someone like, on social media, tagging them. I mean, obviously that's great to do, but I think more and more people want to experience things. So being able to bring people out to the races and let them hear what it sounds like when 40 motorcycles take off when the green lights go out, I think that's way cooler.
Now, and like I said, and I don't want to pigeonhole any of our dealer network that's out there, but whether you may or may not know, we have, I think, around 900 plus or minus dealers coast to coast in North America. So if maybe one of them in the RV world wanted to be affiliated with MP13 Racing, would they have the ability potentially, depending on the sponsorship level, to have the world's most famous female athlete on two wheels do some on-sites? Is that something that you offer in some of the package as well?
Absolutely. It just depends on what someone's after. So if you want us to come out and set up our race rig and all of our racing assets there at your dealership, like that's super easy. You know what I mean? If you want to, like have a meet and greet with racers or whatever, like it's a great thing. Hey man, I own the team. I can do whatever I want. So like, that's what I always say. Like if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, what I really want to do is X, there's really not much that we can't make happen one way or the other.
That's awesome. So I invite everybody listening and watching, if you have any interest in partnering with MP13 Racing, they can go to, what's the best way for them to find you?
I think the best way is either on social media. I'm pretty active on Instagram, and that's just at melissaparis13, or send me an email, just melissa.paris@gmail.com. I'm pretty easy to reach. So, and I'm, like I said, like I'm real responsive on social media. I love talking with people. I love sharing what I'm doing day to day. So it's fun to be able to start a conversation with people about what's going on.
And I think the thing that I feel comfortable saying that, any of you that are considering, looking for sponsorship opportunities, you and Josh, you guys are really, really good people, and you want long-term partnerships. I mean, I sense that when we talked offline with some of the programs, the education, the coaching that you guys are doing, which, I'll probably, blast Josh on that when we talk with him. But, I really do think that you guys are some pretty awesome humans. And I know that our team at Heartland, we're all pulling for you. And we just wish you guys the best. If you were to talk about, I guess, what's the next big thing coming up in the next month or so that you're pretty excited about that maybe the community can be a part of or learn more information about?
Like right now it's definitely like deep in our off season. So this is like the real dark time of the year. Like I said before, where I'm sitting in front of my computer trying to figure out logistics for the year. But it's also a time where Josh is doing a ton of coaching. So, like if you follow us on social media, you'll see like we're having camps out at our house. We're doing ride days. We're going out to track days and doing one-on-one coaching with people. And then I'm also doing a couple cool side projects. I'm building a race bike for someone that Josh is coaching. So I love documenting all that stuff on social media so people can see what we're up to. And, building a flat tracker for another friend of ours. For me, it's a lot of time in the workshop building stuff and a lot of like coaching and just, kind of trying to enjoy a little bit of downtime before the season really gets swinging again.
And by your definition of downtime, I noticed there was nothing said about rest. So I think that you and Josh sitting still is not in your guys' nature. To the fastest woman on two wheels, Melissa Paris, MP13 Racing, I want to thank you so much for taking time to share your life's journey with everyone on the Where's Willie podcast, powered by Heartland RV. It has been a true pleasure, and we cannot wait to see what you and the team produce in 2021.
Thanks a lot.